McDade, an editor and actor working in the TV and film industry in Los Angeles, and this is my sister.
I'm Liz McDade, a huge Columbo fan and a small business owner living in Santa Cruz, California. And this is Trenchcoat Cigar Peugeot, Wandering with Columbo. In each episode, we'll bring you a little Hollywood history, glamour, and behind the scenes as we walk you through Columbo, one of America's greatest TV detective series.
Yay!
Yay! Tonight or today or this morning, whenever you're listening, we are talking about Season 3, Episode 7, Swan Song, which aired March 3rd, 1974. And our snack tonight is chili, and our drink is beer or soda. So, Paul, what do you got tonight?
Sorry, Liz. Like I told you earlier, I was running around, and I got some water and some cold coffee.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to do both of them and just, the kids and...
Why cold coffee, Paul?
Because when I was rereading some stuff for the show, some Johnny Cash stuff and Ida Lupino stuff, I was having a nice hot cup of coffee from Pete's. It was like Major Dickinson. I don't know the flavor for the roast.
Oh yeah, I recognize that name.
Yeah, so it was that. So there's a little half and half in it, but it's been sitting out for a couple of hours. But I think
delicious.
It's fine. What about you?
All right. Well, I admit I also do not have chili tonight.
Liz,
I know.
Come on, again?
I know, again.
Last time we had chili, you blew it.
I know, I totally blew it. And tonight I blew it.
And all the Mike Lally fans were upset about that, too.
I know, for sure.
Jen and Sam.
I have some cookies that are homemade. They're like peanut and cashew cookies. Very tasty. My father-in-law, Scott, baked these.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Go Scott.
Yeah. And I do have an actual beer. I have a Ghost Town Brewing IPA called Melano. And it's tasty. And I have it in a new koozie that I got for Mother's Day.
Oh, yeah. Happy Mother's Day.
My kids and Elliot know me so well. It's a little... koozie from my other favorite podcast, My Favorite Murder. It's a little cute little cartoon koozie of one of their episodes where they talked about these 30-foot skeletons that Home Depot was selling these 30-foot skeletons for Halloween one year. Anyway, it became an animation on YouTube.
For the podcast? For that podcast? Okay.
Yeah, so one of their fans started animating little snippets from their podcast. And they're hilarious. That's what I have.
Who are the hosts? Who are the hosts of that show?
That show, it's Georgia Hardstark and Karen Kilgariff.
Do they write other stuff? They always been writing in television or radio?
Karen used to write in TV. I know she wrote for Ellen DeGeneres.
Okay.
And I think she wrote on some shows, perhaps. I don't know. I should know. And then Georgia, I think she worked for the Food Network. I don't know. Anyhow, they're very funny people.
Yeah, you mentioned them before.
Yeah, I know. I always talk about the same things, including that.
It looks like you have a little flying insect in the room with you.
Yeah, there's some kind of little fly in here keeping me company tonight.
Is that Barney the fly? Is that his name?
Barney the fly? What?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I had my friend, childhood friend Terrence. That's what his mom used to say when there was be a fly in his kitchen.
Oh, she would name it
in Munich. Yeah, she's like, "Don't kill him. That's Barney."
Aw. Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to kill this guy just because he's kind of fast, but he's in here with me hanging out.
Did he watch the Columbo episode too?
Yeah, for sure. He's been with me. I've been in here all day.
He loved Ida Lupino, I bet. I mean, who doesn't love Ida Lupino?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. Actually, she was a little hard to watch in this episode. Not necessarily her acting, just her character was a bit, I don't know, a little painful.
She was very tough in real life.
Was she?
Yeah, what I've been reading. Yeah, she was very. When I say tough, maybe it's she honored her feelings, and she says in her biography that William Donati wrote. It's really good. She told him, he got to know her really well. She told him that, and in his research, that she had to figure out a way to not always go to the anger, not always jump to it. So she would have a tendency to sort of like, because she fought her way. Her dad was very well-known British comedian of the stage and theater and even film, and his uncle. She has a huge lineage of performers in her family, and her dad, when she was born, either when she was born at some point when around there, he was like, "You're going to be famous. You're going to be very famous."
Wow.
But she says her and her dad had a sort of psychic link.
Wow, cool.
With stuff like that, so they had premonitions of things at times in their life that they would help each other, warn each other with things and stuff. But anyway, we want to do a quick review, right? Capsule review.
Yes, a summary of this episode. Okay, Tommy Brown is a famous folk or country or gospel singer, sort of a blend of genres. Oops. Tommy Brown is being blackmailed by his wife. In turn, he murders her and his previous victim in a planned plane crash. Columbo is sent to the scene by a suspicious brother-in-law and notices a few oddities at the crash site that get him started on this case. So now we can dive into the thick of it here, Paul.
Okay. Trust you on that.
First of all, do you know what a swan song is?
I don't. I imagine it's a foreboding thing.
Yes. So this is from Wikipedia. The swan song is a metaphorical phrase for a final gesture, effort, or performance given just before death or retirement. And this phrase comes from an ancient belief that swans sing a beautiful song just before their death, since they've been silent for most of their lifetime. So in a sense, this is Tommy's swan song, but also his wife's swan song and Marianne's swan song. I was just curious what that title meant because...
It's great. I love the title.
Yeah. I had never heard that phrase before. So, and then in getting ready for this review, I was like, I should look that up, even though I've seen this episode before. But all right, so let's start with the opening scene here. Tommy Brown is on a stage singing "I Saw the Light," which is a Hank Williams song. And you probably have heard of Hank Williams' music. He's famous for a ton of his music, like "Move It On Over," "Hey Good Looking," "I'm So Lonesome I Couldn't Cry." But anyhow, you can see Hank Williams actually singing this song on YouTube. He's singing it with June Carter, who becomes June Carter Cash in the future, and Roy Acuff. It was kind of a cool little video. Oops, I just lost my spot. John, you can cut this. So Tommy Brown, of course, is played by Johnny Cash, who is a famous, in real life, famous country and beyond singer and songwriter and guitar player. And according to Koenig's book, Shooting Columbo, this script was written for Johnny Cash, and Cash was going to write some original music for the episode, but in the end, he decided to just perform cover songs. So the I Saw the Light and Sunday Morning are both covers. And then, Paul, you probably noticed that this opening scene looks a little weird. And I don't know if you were looking at Koenig's book also, but yeah. So Koenig explains that there was a problem with the audience footage that they had originally filmed, which was actually in Bakersfield and on a soundstage. So the show production crew, filmed an audience, but they lost that audience footage. So all they had was their soundstage footage. But Cash stepped in, filmed his audience at a later date when he played in New York using a local TV station to film it. So that's why the audience footage looks kind of grainy and lower quality than the soundstage footage, because although I'm sure that there would have been some, even if they had been able to keep that footage that the production crew got, it probably would have looked a little different than the soundstage footage of Tommy Brown and the Lost Crusaders on a stage. You think, Paul?
I think so. Yeah, I can't remember if it was, I think St. John said something, my wife, when we were watching that intro, like, I think she kind of liked it, but she also was like noticing the difference in the two. Probably for the time, it was very adequate, I would imagine. It's kind of cool, I think, because like Johnny Cash stepped up to help out with that.
Yeah.
Right? As Koenig said. So yeah, it was very noticeable, them cutting between the two,
Yeah.
One's grainy and one's not. It's funny because I was like wondering, well, what happened to that original footage at Bakersfield? Why, like I wonder if someone got in trouble for the film got spoiled somehow, or, the technical difficulties of we thought it was in the can, but yeah, it wasn't actually rolling at the time.
That must have been so disappointing when they figured that out.
Yeah, I did work on a project at one point, and that was it wasn't the main footage, but there was some footage like that where they didn't get it. That's happened on a couple projects I've worked on.
It just sounds like the worst.
Yeah, especially if you're moving fast and people are expecting it. It can turn not pretty,
Yeah, and they only had Johnny Cash to film for a little while, so they were kind of, they were on a really tight timetable with him too. So, and then I just wanted to say that the actual very opening, before they're even on the stage, is when Tommy Brown is pulling up to the outside of his venue. That was filmed at the old Gibson Amphitheater at Universal Studios, which is no longer there.
Oh.
They tore it down in 2013 to build the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
Oh, wow.
But it used to be an outdoor amphitheater, and then it had a roof put on it in 1982, and then they just tore the whole thing down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So for the amusement park, the Harry Potter.
Correct. Yeah, the Harry Potter section of Universal. There's a few there's like a handful of rides. There's
the Vesta just went to that. My daughter, went with a friend.
I saw pictures of her. She looked like she's having a blast.
Yeah, the boys went a while back with St. John, but I've never been. I've been on the lot for Universal. I think I mentioned once before for like a walkathon type thing, and we saw like Desperate Housewives house and.
Nice. I took the girls there to the Harry Potter world, to Universal Studios, and we did the Harry Potter stuff. And we went with Olivia, my sister-in-law. So that
Did you
was cool.
put spells on people? Did you do the wand thing? Were you the wand?
Yeah. That the girls each got a wand. Is that right? Did they both get a wand? It might have just been that one of them got a wand. I can't remember. But yeah, we went around and they did the Hazel might not have wanted a wand, if I remember. But they went around and like you tap areas and then things happen, which is pretty fun. It was cool. And after back into the show here. After the performance, Tommy Brown is backstage. He's surrounded by adoring girls, and one of them really wants him to kiss her. And we meet Edna, played by Ida Lupino, who's also in Short Fuse. And Edna sends all of the fans home, and she makes sure Tommy walks the line. You can tell he's, watching her watch him. And so Tommy goes into his dressing room alone without any of his fans. And we also meet, we already met Luke, but here we learn that Luke is Edna's brother. Luke wants to know what Edna has on Tommy that makes him behave. And Edna says she's not going to tell him. But we do see a silent young woman standing by Edna's side, which sort of is a little bit of foreshadowing here.
She looks like Sondra Locke, the actress.
I don't know who that is.
That Clint Eastwood was married to, yeah. A little bit. I mean, not totally.
But that's not who she is. Is that
No,
true?
no,
Okay.
no. That's Bonnie Van Dyke.
Okay.
Plays Marianne Cobb.
And Luke has a great outfit. He's got a navy blazer with some white thread trimmed all around, this Western style bow tie, and a dark cowboy hat.
Yeah.
He looks pretty sharp.
I wanted to watch some of his Bill McKinney stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He was like a stuntman, I think, and he was most famous for the being in Deliverance. He played one of these really scary.
Yeah, one of the scary.
They sort of attack the campers.
Yeah. Oh man, that movie is scary.
Yeah, he said Burt Reynolds made up stuff about him that he was extra method and he was never extra method. He just did the role or something like that.
That sounds like it could be an insult when you're playing a villain like the Deliverance guys.
I mean, that to me, that was like one of Burt Reynolds' best sort of films, like sort of that are not a typical Burt Reynolds, not Smoking the Bandit or Sharky's Machine, not the tough guy role that although he did all kinds of stuff, comedy and, Burt Reynolds did some really good stuff.
Yeah.
I always felt like when I first saw Deliverance, I thought he was the weak link in the ensemble.
Oh.
Even when I was like high school when I saw it. Oh. And like his delivery at the very end when he's in the hospital bed, like the line was like there was still something missing. Even though it was not bad, it was good, but compared to everybody else, it just was not natural.
Okay.
Or as natural, I should say.
Yeah.
I still thought he was good. And I mean, that movie is such a unique combination of forces, that made that. John Borman has done some really great films over the years. That's definitely one of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't realize Luke was in that. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, Edna, Luke, and the silent young girl go into the venue's office to get paid. And the show took in about $50,000. Tommy and his crew get about 3/5 of that. And do you know what that is in today's money?
You're going to tell me.
$325,000 in today's money.
Wow, that's good.
That's pretty good. And I was just curious, what do musicians, like a comparable musician, what would they make for a show today? So I went with Willie Nelson. I don't know if that's comparable to Johnny Cash at his peak. But Willie Nelson, this is according to, I think I found this.
So like what Willie Nelson gets now?
Yeah. What Willie Nelson gets today, according to some Pollstar 2021 year-end top 100 worldwide tours chart. His average gross per show is almost $500,000. So it's not that unrealistic that, Tommy Brown would have brought home that amount. Actually, that'd be a little bit less than what Willie gets. Anyhow, but what the number I got for Willie was gross. So it doesn't include what the venue takes and all those production costs and whatnot. Oh, but did you notice our good friend here with the numbers?
Yep, he did. Yeah, I was like, it's Mike Lally.
Mike Lally, he's here. He's got the numbers for us again.
Yeah, a couple of lines, right?
Mm-hmm. And we learned that the Browns are spending $5 million to build a tabernacle, which is about $34 million in today's money, which seems like a lot of money to build basically, a cathedral or a large church. But I don't know. Maybe it's going to be super fancy.
You're supposed to research that, Liz.
I know. I failed.
A typical tabernacle in 1973 would cost nowadays, if you...
Most comparable recent tabernacle construction, Pasadena, 2019.
The Theosophy Society.
Mm-hmm. Well, meanwhile, while Edna's collecting the cash, Tommy is in his dressing room. He's clearly up to something. He's moving some papers out of a large briefcase, and he's putting in its place some fabric and rope, which we will understand later is a parachute. And he's also clearly drugging his thermos. After he finishes that, Edna comes in with the silent young lady who we finally meet. We learn she's Marianne, and Tommy pleads with Edna to change this financial arrangement where all this money is going to build this tabernacle. All the money from their concerts is going to the tabernacle. And then we finally learn the dirt that Edna has on Tommy, which is that he is guilty of statutory rape with Marianne. And there's a lot of sort of explaining and telling in this scene, maybe more than I think we needed. It's a little bit, it goes on for a little bit. And the whole thing is kind of a weird scenario. You know, this wife forces a man that she knows is guilty of rape to marry her. And then the victim stays around, you know, hanging out with this guy and her. So Edna's kind of using Marianne like this weird sort of, you know, scar or painful reminder or evidence. And Marianne's just kind of going along with it.
Like you think they wouldn't have said anything with her in the room?
I don't know. It just, the whole thing is kind of awkward and strange. Like, wouldn't Marianne want to get as far away from this guy as possible?
Well, not if it's making them money, and it's you know, this is a power situation as well. It's not, you know, there's always these power struggles within, you know, different groups. It reminded me of, like, I did some research with cults got stuff from academic writers who had spent time with cults. And there was a good documentary on the cult in, they went overseas to Africa. What was that guy's name?
No, I don't know.
They drank the wine and killed themselves.
Oh, not Jim Jones.
Yeah, Jim Jones. Yeah. Like there was a documentary from some of the survivors or people who used to be in the church, and they had a circle. I mean, that's very different than this, but the stuff that they were doing was incredibly horrific. They were hurting each other. There was sexual stuff they were doing to each other, and they were like the top leaders of the church. Mm-hmm. So all the people below them had no idea that stuff was going on. Mm-hmm. So if you think about this is small potatoes compared to what I heard in that documentary. Mm-hmm. It was on PBS about 10 years ago or something, or 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. So if she's making money and she knows what a lech he is and that he broke the law, you would think that, but she obviously is similar to him and doesn't mind taking advantage of him to keep that money coming in, because that's how they're making so much money, because of him. Mm-hmm. And so it's sort of this weird, it's not really about being good to people like a lot of some churches and that are, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I can see that. I could see that.
But what does Marianne get out of it? Why does Marianne stick around?
Brainwashed, you know?
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Right? Don't you think? Like she realizes, oh yeah, I was taken advantage of, you know, or I was, you know, crime was committed against me, you know, and he needs to learn. Mm-hmm. I don't know, you know. Yeah, but that, I hear what you're saying too, though.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, though. I mean, that does make sense. I mean, I definitely can understand Edna, and actually, I Googled, like, are there cases of spouses blackmailing each other? And there are.
Sure.
There are all kinds of, like, sadly, like, posts on forums like Quora. Do you ever go to Quora?
No, what's that?
Or it's Quora, Quora. It's kind of like Reddit.
Okay.
But it's where you ask questions and community people write in. Anyhow, there's several posts on there where people are saying, hey, my wife is blackmailing me, or hey, my husband's. Yeah, this is fairly common. And then I also found a few public criminal cases where a husband or wife was blackmailing their spouse, and the blackmailers were arrested and charged. One of them ended up going to jail. One of them, I didn't follow up to see if she ended up serving time. But yeah, so this whole scenario is not that uncommon. It
was like David Letterman, remember?
No.
Yeah, one of his staff members he had an affair with, and then she had a friend who's like, let's blackmail Letterman.
Yeah.
And Letterman went public before they I don't know if they thought it was working, but he went public on his show and said, you know, I remember watching it and being like, what's going on?
Like, what? What's happening?
Which is interesting.
Like,
he kind of just took,
explain this to me.
You know, yeah, he just took the story, and, you know, Letterman's done at that point was so successful, you know, that was like at the end there that, you know, he's going to just share with the world what's happening. And
yeah.
So, but yeah, they were, I think they were, I don't think he ever gave him money, but they were definitely trying to blackmail him.
Right.
And it was probably common for
it seems like
contracts and stuff, like with Errol Flynn. I think Errol Flynn, didn't he? I think he had the actor, something like that. Yeah. So blackmailing pictures and Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein, he had the, security people doing that to people, like filming them, recording them, trying to get anything he could to have it against them.
I mean, I understand that. I was just kind of surprised that like the person that you're married to, and then that you would stay in that marriage.
Right.
And,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know why I was surprised, because people can be awful.
Yeah. No matter. Yeah.
If you're married or not married, people can be awful to each other. Anyhow, so now we understand what's happening. We understand the big tension and why Tommy is on the hook with Edna. And Tommy tells Edna and Marianne that they can't fly now because of the weather, even though we just heard him get the weather and he was encouraged to fly right away. But he's now lying and saying, we have to hang out a little while and then we can go. And he sends Luke, his brother-in-law, and his, one of his helpers. I don't know what his official title is. He sends Luke with his black guitar to ride in the bus instead of on the airplane with him and his wife and Marianne. So now we head to the airport, and the filming location appears to be a Tacoma Airport, also known as Whiteman Airport. IMDb says this was filmed at Universal, but this was definitely filmed at a real airport, not the Bakersfield Airport. That one's called Meadows Field. It looks a little different. And they so Tommy, Edna, and Marianne head to their private plane, which is a little 1971 Cessna. And you can actually see the serial number painted on the airplane, which I never noticed before, but I guess all those little planes have their serial numbers on the side. And so you could, according to IMDb, I think this plane is still in use today. It's an old one, but it's still functioning. And we meet Jeff, the gum-chewing airport mechanic.
He's very enthusiastic.
He's so good. I love Jeff. He grabs Tommy's hand and he's shaking it and he's not letting go. And Tommy's very gracious. And Tommy offers him the rental car, says, hey, I still got time on this car. Go take it for a spin. But Edna says, no, I checked the mileage. You may not take that car for a drive.
I thought that was part of his plot when he told him to do that.
Oh, how so?
I don't know. I'm saying because I didn't remember what happened, but I thought that was going to be part of his, look, can you drive this around for a while to make it seem like he was driving at some point? Just a thought I had, but obviously it wasn't. He was just being nice.
I think he was just trying to be charming and nice.
Yeah.
I think that's just part of his celebrity personality, is to kind of charm people that he comes into contact with. Tommy gives him a $5 tip. That's about a $35 tip today. So that's a pretty nice tip.
Yeah.
And now it's time to take flight. So Tommy and Edna and Marianne are in the plane. And it looks like they probably filmed this. I mean, they must have filmed this in a studio with some kind of, screens behind them. And I don't know if maybe they were shaking the plane.
Could have been, yeah. I really like that. I really like the red.
Yeah.
And the smoke going by.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how it just kind of rocks back and forth when you sing Johnny Cash on the side, but I slipped right into the reality of it.
Yeah, they did a good job of making it feel like you're really in a tiny plane. And Tommy turns off the heater once they're up in the air, and the ladies in the back are cold. They want him. He says the heater's busted. Another little lie here. He hands them this special coffee that he's doctored up earlier in his dressing room to warm them up. And I thought that Johnny Cash did a good job of playing a bad guy in this moment. He's kind of looking over his shoulder, making sure that they're drinking it and falling asleep. I was impressed with Johnny Cash in general in this episode. I thought he did a really good job.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty good. I think there was a couple scenes, I think, where St. John had said something like, it sounded like he was slurring his words.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can't remember, but I did get a sense of that's when she was saying that, I was thinking that too. But yeah, no, I remember seeing this a long time ago and liking it and liking, Johnny Cash. Like, it really stood out to me. Yes, no, I think he did a really good job as well.
Yeah. Well, once they're asleep in the plane, Tommy throws the thermos out the door. And it's interesting as to open the whole door to throw it out. And then he puts on a harness, this sort of homemade harness, grabs his parachute, and goes out the door with his parachute in his arms. And then he releases the parachute and comes down while we watch, the plane is taking a nosedive, and it smashes into the side of the mountain and explodes. And Tommy lands close by, also, on the mountainside. He hurts his foot when he lands. He also sees a car approaching. And he quickly hides his parachute in the trunk of a tree, and then he throws himself down the hillside. That was an impressive stunt, Paul. Did you notice that?
Yes, yeah.
Oh my God.
Is that him?
No, I'm sure that was...
Okay, yeah, somebody else.
That was somebody else in a sort of, longish, floppy black wig. But they tumbled down that hill. I mean, it was like serious tumbling.
But yeah, him actually landing close to the crash and getting there before someone, that was a little much.
Yes.
It was kind of like the Lee Grant and the money drop.
Yes, I agree. I mean, he could see where the plane is going and he could see where it lands, but his ability to actually navigate his parachute there, that seems kind of sketchy, but we're going to let that slide.
Well, he was a parachuter though.
That's true.
So that was his specialty. So the plane would have been much quicker than him. Mm-hmm. He could steer it that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe it works.
Yeah. Well, once he gets himself by the car, he kind of lays down and pretends to be, passed out or unconscious or whatever. And it's amazing how fast the plane burns down. So everything is ashes. By the time he's there, it's already, basically ashes. I chose not to look up plane crash sites. And I was like, I don't want to see those. I don't want to learn too much about this.
Yeah.
But it did seem a little fast for the whole plane to be basically gone. But there it is. And there's a truck driver. Someone, sees this crash happening and they pull over. There's two people riding in a truck. They've got a cute little camper on the back of their truck. They pull over and they help Tommy out. So now we move on to Columbo's arrival. So it's the next day. We see Columbo driving to the scene of the crash. And according to IMDb, this was filmed in Nichols Canyon, which is kind of over by Laurel Canyon and, in the Hollywood Hills area. I'm sure it's more developed now than when this was filmed. But I did look at Nichols Canyon. This neighborhood started, quite a while ago. I can't remember what year, but apparently generations of Hollywood stars have lived in Nichols Canyon, including John Cassavetes. And Bruce Willis lived there at one point. Apparently, he threw a lot of parties when he lived there, and his neighbors did not like that because they wanted to be in a quiet little country neighborhood. But it looks like a really beautiful area. Have you driven around up there at all, Paul? Nichols Canyon or Laurel Canyon or?
I worked with an editor who lived at the bottom of, he lived in that area. I forget why I went to the editor's house to get some stuff or give him some stuff. I went there maybe a couple times, but I drove through there to go, if I'm remembering right, to go across town.
You have to remember it right, Paul.
I know. Originally,
we're counting on you here.
Yeah. So I've been on Laurel Canyon Boulevard. I've driven through there to get from that area to West Hollywood. I did that. I can't remember what I was working on. It might have been to get from one location to another. Maybe it was because I was seeing the editor, and then I had to go to somewhere else, to deliver something. Because sometimes I'll work on a project and I'll think it's done, and then they'll be like, "Oh, hey, so and so needs to finish up something," and so someone will give me a drive, and I'll have to take the drive to the person, and with footage or something random,
Yeah.
So if you're, like now I have to drive an hour into work because I'm in Pasadena, and then I'm going to West Hollywood, and during rush hour traffic, and you're trying to figure out any new ways. So Laurel Canyon was like a new way. I'm like, well, how long will this take? Does this save me time? And it's real windy. And so if you're coming from somewhere, like more northern area, but depending on traffic, you can find these pockets where it's like, oh, this is quicker if you take this road and this road. Like the editors I'm with now, we're all talking about that. We're like, well, what road did you take today? Yeah.
Oh man.
So I'm just like, well, I'm just going to get a good podcast, or like I've listened to the Projection Booth. The Projection Booth is Mike White. He had interviewed the guy from Prescription Murder, who I liked so much. Who was in a Buck Rogers. They've been going for a long time. Cool. They interview writers and directors and other people who are film buffs and nerds or whatnot. And that's I really like the Projection Booth. It's pretty good. I've only heard 3 now. Okay. So now I'm just like, I'll just make sure I have something for the drive. Totally.
Then it's not so bad. All right. Well, Columbo's there. He has to kind of push his way onto the crash site. Then he's a total pest once he gets there. He keeps wandering into the shot of this news crew. They're trying to film what's happening, and he keeps wandering around in the background.
What's funny, though, is like, why would that matter?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because even if it was like, but maybe back then they were a little more particular who was in a shot. Mm-hmm. But now it's like the more, the merrier.
Right.
Like the public, keeping the public away. But maybe that was part of that. Maybe because initially they thought he was just some sightseer.
Right. Yeah. A looky-loo? Did they use that word? I can't remember what word they used or phrase. Well, after, he gets kind of called out, he discreetly talks to the lead investigator from the Air Safety Division of the National Transportation Safety Board. Columbo doesn't want everyone around to know that he's a cop, that one of the relatives has raised suspicions about the crash. And we meet Mr. Pangborn, who's kind of like a taller, smoother version of Columbo. He has a nicer tie and a nicer suit and a nicer trench coat. And Pangborn explains that the pilot said it was total electrical failure, but that pilot error will also probably be a part of the cause of this crash. And did the cameraman resemble any recurring character to you, Paul?
Is he related to Mike Lally? Is that his son?
Yes.
It said Mike Edward Lally. Yes. Before you said that, I was just looking at that. Oh, that's awesome.
So Mike Lally's son, Mike Edward Lally, plays the cameraman. And I think this was his only acting credit, but he gave an interview to another Columbo fan named Ted Karen. He gave an interview about his dad, Mike Lally, and the interview is online.
Oh, I wish you told me. Thanks for telling me now.
Yeah,
awesome.
We might have to
wait to check that out.
Read some, go over that and share some of that one of these days. But because we don't know very much about Mike Lally, even though he's in so many episodes of Columbo, and so it's just I didn't read the whole thing. I just didn't have time, but it'd be fun to get into that a little bit. And so the TV crew is trying to interview Pangborn, but with Columbo there, their schedule is thrown off. And at one point, they invite some of the other air safety investigators into the shot with Mr. Pangborn. And I got to say that I think there might have been a sale on these white coveralls because they look a lot like the Bakersfield Airport mechanic coveralls. They're just a lot cleaner, and they don't say Bakersfield on the back. But again, there's kind of a lot of telling and explaining in this scene. So Columbo goes back to poking around while Mr. Pangborn talks with the news crew. I mean, it's kind of nice the way they did it. You know, we're watching Columbo poke around and think, and while we hear Mr. Pangborn talking. But I also felt like this episode has a lot of explaining, and that's one of the reasons it's not one of my favorite episodes. It's just,
I did like that the way when he was figuring it out here. I really did like that part. He was looking at the stuff by himself and was just silence, sort of, you know, not silence, but and then asking the question, and then like it worked well for me.
Yeah. And so Columbo points out a couple things to Pangborn in this scene. He notices the seatbelts, that the pilot's seatbelt was unbuckled, and the two women in the back seat, their seatbelts were buckled. And he also finds the navigation kit. So it's like the big briefcase that had the parachute. He finds that on the ground, empty, no ashes. And Mr. Pangborn says they could use a man like him on their team. And then Columbo delivers one of my favorite lines from this episode. He says, "Oh, no. My ears pop in an elevator. As a matter of fact, I don't even like being this tall."
Yeah. I like that they both start taking notes too, with their little pads. Yeah. I thought that was great.
Yeah, Columbo said, I wrote down what Columbo said. "Oh, you got one of those too?" Yeah.
He's a good addition, Pangborn. Does he come on again? Is he in another episode?
I don't think so. I think this was... Well, actually, I don't know if the actor reappears.
The character doesn't?
Pretty sure the character does not. But yeah, he's like an alternate dimension Columbo. I mean, really, his pencil's nicer. It has like a proper eraser on the back. His notebook is nicer.
And he's open. He's open to suggestion. He's not, you know, like some of the investigator people who know everything already. Right.
Yeah, this guy appreciates Columbo. All right, well, it's time for a funeral. And we see Vito Scotti again. He's been in 6 other episodes of Columbo. Any Old Port in a Storm, A Candidate for Crime, Negative Reaction, Identity Crisis, and Murder, a Self-Portrait. So Columbo shows up at the funeral, but he's not allowed inside. The Vito, what's his name, Mr. Grindel, kind of keeps him outside. So Columbo instead talks to Grindel, and he tries so hard to pin Columbo down on purchasing a package to plan for his own funeral and cremation or burial or whatever. Columbo looks very uncomfortable.
Yeah, this is a great one. Vito is great in this. He looks different. He's nice. He really wants to sell something to Columbo. You know, usually he's not kind, wants Columbo to move along. So there was an excellent new character that he generated here.
Yeah,
was able to be a part of. Yeah, no, this is one of the great parts of this episode.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the highlights of this episode. I spent way too long trying to find this filming location, Paul. You can see on the side of this mortuary that the numbers say 1121. You can also see a golden sign that says Memorial Park Mortuary. My best guess is that this was filmed somewhere at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, but I cannot find an exact image of this building.
You don't think it's on the set on Universal?
I don't think so, because did you see all of the grass and trees when he pulled up?
Oh, well, I'm thinking of the shot where he and the brother are walking, and it's a side. You can see behind him like a building. You can see a building behind Columbo, and it looks like it's set kind of building.
Really?
Maybe not. I mean, I didn't like.
I wasted an hour of my life, Paul.
You can see like wheels of something. You see like it looks like a wall. It's hard to tell, but it looks like it could, like the way it's positioned. It's like over the shoulder of it's where it's behind Columbo. Even looks like there's a gargoyle or something on top of the building behind him.
I'm so let down right now.
No, you mean keep going. Don't stop. Don't stop with my little remark.
The reason I thought it wasn't studio was because there's so much greenery all around it. Did you see it?
But you don't think they cut the two together? Or it is for sure the same location?
I'm pretty sure that he pulls up and walks up and it's all the same. It's all continuous.
Okay.
If anybody knows, let us know. Okay. Save me the agony. Well, anyhow, wherever this was filmed, after Columbo does a very good job of resisting the sale from Mr. Grindel. And then Luke comes out of the church and Columbo chats with Luke. He asks Luke about the navigation kit. And Luke says, "Oh, did you find something? Are you on to something?" And Columbo says, "Probably not, but, he's still looking into things." Luke insists that Columbo talks to Tommy today. He says, you got to ask him today, see what he's up to today. But Columbo's clear with Luke. He's firm. He says, it's just going to be me talking to him. But I don't have any reason to accuse him of anything or whatever.
Yeah, I like that. Him trying to, and Columbo's just like, just calm down.
Yeah. Columbo is doing a good job here of trying to satisfy Luke, but also, really be firm about what he can and can't do. So now it's time for a party.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you know how I like a party. So according to IMDb, this was filmed at 861 Flint Ridge Avenue in La Cañada, Flint Ridge, which is a little outside of LA. It's a vacant lot right now, so I don't know if it's been vacant, if there was ever a home. I'm guessing there was a home and it was demolished at some point. And this is not your typical wake. This is not your typical, post-funeral celebration of life event. I think it's mostly the ratio of girls in bikinis to other partygoers. So it definitely feels like more of a party for Tommy, for newly single Tommy. I don't think these women in bikinis are friends of Edna's. And Tommy Brown is playing guitar with his band. People are sitting in the yard and they're drinking and they're eating and they're having a good time. Columbo finds some chili, but it's made with squirrel. And I had to look up, what does squirrel taste like? Apparently, according to the internet, it tastes like a blend of chicken and rabbit with a sweet and nutty taste because they eat so many nuts, I guess.
Johnny Cash's dad used to kill squirrels.
Oh, really?
For food, yeah, because they had to get what they could, or he had to get what he could. Mm-hmm. At a certain, that I read some of his autobiography and sort of the struggles his dad had, and they used to pick cotton. Johnny Cash used to actually pick cotton.
Oh wow!
Did you notice his boot? Someone, another Columbo fan came over the other night, mm-hmm. and she pointed out that was one big discrepancy. Look at the boot sticking out of the.
Okay, so I looked at this.
Thank you. That was Sophia.
I looked closely at this. So Tommy Brown, he hurt his foot when he landed with his parachute, and now he has a cast on his foot. I am pretty sure that it's a foot with a black sock, and then there's some kind of heel on the cast
to help him,
so that his gait is balanced because his shoe has a heel.
Okay,
but I don't think it's a boot under that cast. I think it's a sock.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, like a black sock, but it goes by so quickly because you have to do it frame by frame.
You can kind of see when Tommy and Columbo are walking to the pool house. They're walking on the steps and they're kind of pausing, and you can kind of see his feet. Sorry, I just took a bite of cookie. So if you look at that moment, you can kind of tell it's a sock. It's a different shape than his boot. So have you ever eaten squirrel, Paul?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Maybe, and I was thinking like in Alabama. Did I do that?
It might be kind of an Alabama thing.
Well, have you?
No.
Okay.
But when I was in Ecuador many years ago, I did a summer there in college. They ate guinea pigs.
Oh.
Which are very much like squirrels.
Did you eat the guinea pig?
I did not eat the guinea pig. Yeah.
Hazel, your daughter, is really upset right now hearing you on the other side.
No,
Mom.
It's true. It was so awful that I'm not the whole experience, but the food, the first night I got to my host family, they lived in this really rural little village. You know, we didn't have any windows or screens. The house was made of bricks, but it didn't have, you know, your typical modern housing features. And in the kitchen, there was a pen full of guinea pigs. And the first night I was with them, they made a wonderful dinner. It was delicious. And then the next day I got incredible food poisoning.
Oh my gosh.
So sick. I felt so awful. And it's no fun getting sick when you're somewhere new, you know, you're not at home. And they don't have like a bathroom. They had like a pit, you know, in the yard.
Oh, okay.
Anyhow, so after that, the program organizers said, you know, one thing to do is just to avoid eating meat and fish while you're here. So, you know, even if I had been tempted to try guinea pig, I was discouraged after that. They said that I would be less likely to get sick again. I don't know how true that is, but that's what they told me.
Did you get better the next day or a day? Like, did it take a while to get food poisoning?
Yeah, I was over it probably within like 24 hours or 36 hours or something. But oof, what a way to introduce yourself to a new family.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Ugh, it was awful. Anyhow, no squirrel, no guinea pig. Well, a couple of things happen in this scene. So, you know, Columbo isn't super into eating squirrel. Luke takes a swing at Tommy. Tommy hits the floor with his guitar. This was his actual guitar, Paul. This was a specially made Martin. This is like from IMDb. Martin D35 guitar. Johnny Cash had them make him a one-of-a-kind black guitar. And so this was his actual guitar. So Luke gets fired. He gets ejected from the bikini party. And Columbo calms Tommy down and says, can we talk privately? So they go to the pool house on this property. And Columbo flatters Tommy a little bit. You know, it's interesting. Columbo has all these different techniques when he is investigating a crime, right? Like sometimes he's a little bit more intense and harsh, and then sometimes he's very flattering. And in this first encounter with Tommy, he's super flattering. Tommy says, you know, my life is an open book. Everyone knows that I've done time. And Columbo says, yeah, but what you've done since then has been, I forget the word he uses, but he's like, it's been really great or really good or something like that. And so then once Tommy's kind of calm and buttered up a little bit, Columbo asks him a couple questions about the seatbelt. And Tommy says, oh, he had to get a flashlight out of the glove box. That's why he unbuckled. And then Columbo asks him, well, what happened to all of your maps? And Tommy says, oh, the windows fogged up. So I had to open the windshield fogged up. So I had to open the windows and the maps flew out. And then at the very end, Columbo mentions the guitar. Because Tommy starts talking about it and Columbo says, oh, I'm glad you told me about sending the guitar with Luke in the bus because that's what got Luke suspicious. Luke said that's the first time you haven't flown with your guitar. And that's why, you know, he thought you had something to do with the plane crash. And then he ends things by saying, you know, we'll probably just call it an accident, but I have to keep investigating, just tying up all these loose ends. So that's kind of that's kind of the wrap up there. And so now Columbo is going to keep digging into it. I don't know if there was something in that encounter that made him suspicious, but, you know, perhaps Tommy's answers weren't that great to him.
Yeah. Just like, because he keeps, like, it probably shouldn't have been having this looks a little unusual to having this little party.
All right. Well, Paul, it's time to head back to the airport.
Let's do it.
And I actually love this little moment. Columbo lands at the Bakersfield airport. He pulls up to the main hangar in a police plane, and he does not look too good. He is gripping a little handle above his head. And the pilot has to pry his hand off the handle so they can open the door and climb out. I love that little moment. Columbo's not good at flying. And we get to spend a little more time with gum chewing Jeff again. And Columbo learns a little bit more about the navigation kit. And he also learns for the first time that there was a thermos up in the cockpit. And that's the last we see of Jeff. All right, let's head back to Tommy's house for some big creep vibes that he's putting down. Back at Tommy's house, he is sitting at the piano with a young lady named Tina. He's clearly coming on to her, and she is clearly uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a little bit painful to watch, but here you know, as the viewer, you learn like, oh, this guy really is a creep. Here he is in the flesh being creepy towards another young lady. And Tina tells him, you know, I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of my own feelings. Yeah, right. Okay. And then she says, oh, also, I feel like it's so soon since your wife died.
Yeah.
And he doesn't back off. He just like keeps his hand on her shoulder. And it's a little bit gross. But so Columbo shows up and he's got a couple more questions for Tommy. And this is one of those scenes where I felt like Johnny Cash did a nice job of playing charming celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to offer Columbo something, and Columbo's not, he doesn't need any of it right now. And Tommy says, oh, you're just shaming me now. You won't let me do anything for you.
Yeah. I like this a lot. I liked his like, hey, little buddy.
Yeah, it's a good moment here. And Columbo, you can feel his strategy is a little bit different. I mean, he's not being super cold or anything, but now that he has Tommy Brown willing to talk, he's not like laying on the charm as much as he is when they first met. He's a little bit more down to business. This guy is bad news, probably guilty. There's more cool floral furniture here. It's all shades of white, but it's definitely reminiscent of those patterns that we've seen in some of the other Columbos. But the sofa is just like a solid material. It doesn't have any cool flowers on it. I just thought I'd share that.
It looks nice. I like that couch he's on.
Yeah. I mean, I think that couch would stand up today, and it's not that dated. This space strikes me like a studio set.
Yes, I think so.
And dressed like a studio. There is a dog statue in the background.
I didn't see that. Oh, I know. I see it. Oh, yeah.
It's a small, like, tabletop size dog.
Just enough that maybe not everybody will notice. Except for the Columbo fans.
Except for people like me. And this, I think it's a dog, but it's yellow and it has a few black spots. So maybe it's a different animal. I don't know.
Giraffe?
No, it's not a giraffe.
It looks like a dog with the ears, yeah.
I think it's a dog.
Or one of those Egyptian gods, I don't know.
Yeah, totally. There's also a horse statue, which I feel like has been in another Columbo, but I did not have time to track down the horse statue. But I feel like if we watch some of Shauna's videos, watch it for days, she would.
I would tell you the origin, who created.
She would know exactly how many episodes the horse statue has been in. It looks familiar. It's a small little tabletop horse, like, cowboy kind of thing. I don't know. Anywho, moving on here. We also, so Columbo has a couple questions for Tommy. He asks him about the thermos, and he asks him about learning to fly, where he learned to fly. They both did the Korean War. Columbo was MP, KP mostly. That brings a laugh. Do you know what that means, Paul?
Oh, I've heard it before. I mean, I know the M military police, but the KP. Oh, yeah. That's the cook, the kitchen or whatever.
Kitchen patrol. Yeah. So I guess Columbo had to work in the kitchen a bit.
Yeah, in real life he was. Remember, we
Oh,
talked
that's
about that in
right.
the Spielberg one. Because I used to know a cook. Remember, I knew my ex-husband was a cook in the Navy, or was that the line?
Yeah. That's right. The oh gosh, the one about the authors.
Publisher
The one author,
Parish.
Publisher Parish. There
Is
we
that
go.
it?
No.
No.
Death. No, not Death on the.
It's Murder by the Book.
There we go, Paul, for the win. Everyone listening was like, "Come on, are you guys a Columbo podcast?"
Like, stop.
What? Okay, good job. Murder by the Book. Yeah. Okay, so Columbo was KP mostly. Columbo asks Tommy why he decided to fly later in the night, knowing the weather wasn't great, and why he took a nap. So Tommy's got answers for everything. He says the crowd kept him later. He always naps before a late flight. And then Columbo leaves, and Tommy takes a call about the tabernacle. He says, that's right, I'm canceling the tabernacle. And then Columbo pops back in, and he says, I think there was something edited out here, Paul, because he asks, Tommy asks Columbo, I guess you overheard that conversation. And Columbo says, overheard that? No, I didn't overhear that. But I knew already that you were canceling the tabernacle. So I don't understand.
How would you know?
Columbo, no.
It's just, yeah.
I'm guessing there was like, were they running short on time and they had to.
And they didn't realize the contradiction in that statement.
Who knows?
It might have been. You're right. It might have been something else, and then when they cut it together, there might have been something where, I don't know.
Maybe Peter Falk just, took matters into his own hands and said what he wanted to say in that moment. All right, let's go check in on the ROTC office, Paul. This is a really weird little scene. So Columbo wants to find out more about Tommy Brown's Air Force duty. So he visits his former colonel, who now runs an ROTC program, which is like, for anyone who doesn't know, that's it's like part-time reserve military service that you can do during college. It's not like active duty. We're actually on a base. And anyhow, the Tommy Brown's former colonel remembers Tommy Brown, has no idea that Tommy Brown is now a celebrity, and explains that Tommy Brown worked on parachutes, parachuting. As soon as Columbo hears this, he calls and orders an autopsy on the two victims. So something clicks in his head in this moment. But did this scene remind you of something? I was wondering, were they trying to do some kind of callback to something? It's such a weird little moment with this funny colonel.
Yeah, it doesn't play well. It's not that funny. Like the room itself is, not bad studio, just not strong studio,
Yeah.
And because I like the actor. The actor is funny, and it would make sense that he would be stern. And I like how they would set up something where it's real. Like Columbo would go in there, and this guy doesn't know who Columbo is from anybody, and he's just a certain. So there's a lot of personality in the colonel, in the character, but it doesn't. It's almost like a different movie or something. Maybe not a different movie, but yeah, it stood out to me as not strong, for the episode. I like that he's going, and this is where he gets this information. I love that. But I thought the colonel's sort of wandering mind was, it could be Nicholas Colsanto, the director. This is the second movie he's done with them. Fade to Black was the Cassavetes one, and they got directorial debut. I know Colsanto was Drinker. I don't know if that if that was affecting his work, as a director.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't mesh well, like,
yeah.
So it's odd. This next scene too in the studio is a little not bad. It's just similar, I think, and it's a little stronger.
Yeah, it's a little stronger. So, like you said, we move on to the recording studio where Tommy Brown is recording, or he's in the process of like listening back to a recording with his band in the recording room. And there's a kind of an interesting character in this scene too. I don't know what his role is, but has on these cool sunglasses. He's like giant oval sunglasses and a big black bow tie.
Yeah,
like
JJ Stringer.
He's funny. But yeah, this is one of my issues with this episode is that I feel like we jump to so many different locations and people, and
we don't see him driving or anything either, huh?
Yeah.
He just kind of appears.
We don't have him in his Peugeot, in his element as much. We don't see him thinking as much. It's very much like bouncing from place to person in place to person in place. A lot of new things being introduced and not super developed.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So I think that's one of the reasons this one's a little bit more jarring to watch. Not one of the classics where you just have a little more time for things to kind of open up and more interesting things to happen.
Yeah, and that would come with everybody's job, the producers, the editor, the director,
the writer. I mean, I don't know what the writer was thinking, like having all these different locations that weren't super, like their studio locations. It's not like really exciting locations.
Yeah. Well, like Stanley Ralph Ross, because they couldn't get him to write the script. Like he didn't want to do it for whatever reason. And then they brought in David Raphael to finish it or to develop it more. So again, it could have been like tighter turnaround with that perhaps. And then if Dean and Roland Kibbe are busy, yeah, it's interesting to think about the editing and like going from scene to scene. Again, it was like the last episode, Mind Over Mayhem, where it felt like there was none of that. And it was just like him at that location and the days didn't really seem to move. And it's just like, and he's leaving the dog with different people, has similar sort of less of a journey for Columbo. It's more like, here I am again, and here I am again. It's like, ta-da!
Yeah.
He's like, and so it doesn't feel like the reality of this world is less so, it's a little, you need those, you don't always need an exterior long shot of the location, but it doesn't hurt.
Right.
It helps you recognize, we're changing things here. This is a different chapter, It's sort of like not having the next chapter heading and you're skipping a page and then all of a sudden he opens the door to a completely different room.
Right.
Like, oh, now he's not here anymore. He stepped through time.
Well, it's interesting when you make those points, Paul, because I was also watching the next episode, which is one of my all-time faves. And just thinking on that now, there are a lot of moments where it's just Columbo, like getting from point A to point B. It's just him, in his car or crossing the street, parking the car. And we have those exterior shots, and it just really makes me feel more pulled into, I'm talking about A Friend Indeed. It just, so it's a big contrast to this episode because you just have so much more of that. There are fewer locations, way less studio locations.
It was like the Lawrence Harvey one, the chess one. Was Lawrence Harvey his name, right? Mm-hmm. The chess one. He even had Columbo sort of following him, but it was very specific. This little journey. Then they got in the car, and or Prescription Murder. You were never in the hallway of the Dr. Barry or whatever the killer's the place they live, the condo, because it was a studio, but there's still a sense of travel.
There is a hallway shot, I think, where she puts.
Oh yeah, no, I think you're right. The laundry stuff.
She puts the
dry
laundry
cleaning
out.
or you're right.
But that's the only one.
Yeah. Or the hospital, but but you see how those help. They sort of help pull you along, with your journey. If you watch old films, you will see they will always show you the exterior. And for this, perhaps it was. But then it seems like if they were trying to fill time, didn't they? Isn't that what happened with some of these episodes? Is they needed to fill more time?
Yeah.
So then why couldn't you just grab that generic exterior shot?
But this one, there might have been so many of those different scenes. They didn't have any. They had to cut. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we better check in on Lucy, aka Jean. So in the next scene, once again, we're meeting another person. Oh, wait, you know what? I forgot to mention a couple of important plot points that happened in the recording studio. So Tommy knows that Columbo did an autopsy on Edna and Marianne. Columbo explains that he found barbiturates in their system. Tommy tries to explain it as air sickness pills. And then Columbo asks for an advance copy of the recording from their last concert that he actually went to with his wife. And that's going to be important as well. Now we can go check in on Lucy, aka Jean. Did you recognize the seamstress?
No, she was another one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's her. That was the one I mentioned, right? The party?
She was at the party and candidate for crime. Yes.
Yeah, I mentioned her. Yeah. But, she did great. She looks so different. I just now realized that was her.
She did so great. Yeah, she looks so different. She is such a different character. So in Candidate for Crime, she played. So her name is Lucy Kibbe, I believe. She's married to Ronald Kibbe, or Roland, whatever his.
Oh, the producer guy.
Yeah. So in Candidate for Crime, she plays one of Vicky's best friends, and she's much more suave and charming and fancy.
And her hair is has streaks in it, right?
In this episode, she plays a seamstress. She's much more spacey. She has a little bonnet on. She's wearing this adorable little floral bonnet on her head. And Paul, I think we need to bring back the bonnet, the adult bonnet.
Okay.
I don't know if
you can. Haven't you made some of those, Vesta?
Vesta.
Vesta is my daughter. Liz is my sister.
Come on, man. Jean is funny. She gets very distracted. Columbo is able to determine that there's a bunch of missing fabric from this. So this is this spot they're at. They make the robes for Tommy Brown's choir, but I have to imagine they make other things too, because you can't really have
that.
You can't only have 3 full-time seamstresses.
Yeah. Unless you had a lot. I mean, if you have this big congregation of people, singers changing.
That's true. And if you're building a $34 million tabernacle,
yep,
you might be anticipating a massive choir to be in there. But anyhow, apparently this space is devoted to robes, and there are 45 yards missing. It's 15 yards on a bolt, which I can verify from my own experience. That is the way fabric is usually sold if you're buying it by the bolt.
Did you like the setup in there? Would you approve of such? If you had enough room like that, would you like that?
Yeah, I was thinking I should look more closely at that set. But yeah, you want nice big tables to cut at, and then smaller desks where you can actually sew. That's kind of how I have my sewing space set up. I have a big table for cutting, and then I have smaller tables for the machines to go on. And then they have I did notice in their space, and I bet the costume designers helped with this, but they have really nice shelving so that the bolts can lay down on their sides on a shelf. If you look behind me, Paul, you can see my bolts of fabric these are actually, I order these fabrics are like 75 meters of fabric at a time because I get this fabric custom printed in India. But I don't have that kind of storage. So my bolts are just standing up, leaning against the wall. And then the 15-yard bolts that I get are the kind that you would see at a fabric store. They're like rectangles of fabric that you've probably, if you've ever been into a fabric store, you've seen them.
Yeah, we did for our stockings for Christmas. We went down to downtown LA to a really cool fabric store. I'm sorry, go ahead though. What were you saying?
I was just going to say, so I have shelves that are designed for the more mainstream bolts that you would see. But what they have is really nice because if it's nice to have that big long space for the bigger bolts.
So don't you want to move the camera so we can see what you're talking about?
Yeah. Okay. So behind me, you can see the bolts leaning against the wall. And then if I flip my camera around, you can see all of my bolts.
Oh, cool.
Of fabric on a shelf.
By the way, you had all that, Liz. That's awesome.
Yeah, I have tons of fabric. By the way, dear listener, these videos are available in our Patreon if you want to see what I'm looking at. If you want to see me and Paul.
If you want to see Mike Lally and Liz, you have to subscribe.
Mike Lally's here on the sofa.
The ghost of Mike Lally.
Ghost of Mike Lally.
He might have hung out with Peter Falk or something. Might have been one of his drinking buddies or something like that.
We need to read his interview.
Yes.
Or his son's interview. Yeah. Let's move on now. Although I did want to say that Jean makes a comment. She wonders if she forgot to reorder the fabric. Columbo doesn't mention that he is pretty sure that someone stole it because that would probably be more upsetting for her. But Jean says, is it what they say? Is it my memory or is it old age? It's just a little it's kind of an odd thing because, Peter Falk, obviously he ended up with dementia in his later life. So it's just weird to see him talking about it when he's younger. I don't know. It's kind of creepy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting. The character here, the lady, I for some reason I kept comparing it to the bird lady in that one episode who was so good who was like the
neighbor,
the one in where she has the birds in her house and she shows him the album book and he just wants to get some information.
Yes.
And we both loved her. She was so good. This has that, and I shouldn't be comparing because it's a different character, different performer. But it was hard not to harken back to that wonderful scene.
Yeah.
It has similarities, but it's not as fun, not as funny. It's good though. It's cool. She's good. It was great to see her perform. And then that was a good catch that's Roland Kibbe's wife.
Yeah, I agree. It's not as great. And I don't know if that was her or if that was the script, but or even the setting, it feels very studio in there, even though they do have some of the nice touches of a sewing studio. It still feels very much like a studio. Yeah, it's not as fun as that was a Toot in Black with John Cassavetes that you're remembering, Paul.
Okay, yeah.
And I think she just cared for. Am I remembering this right? She cared for the victim's bird. No,
that I don't remember.
Okay, maybe I'm totally wrong. Oh my gosh. I think we're starting to jumble the Columbos together, Paul.
And then your kids are going to say, God, look, Mom, my mom didn't realize at this time that she would have Alzheimer's creepy. Later on. It's like, yeah, isn't that crazy?
Oh my God.
Your dad didn't know either.
That's right. One day.
Could be.
One day, kids are going to go back to this. They're going to say it was all there. It was so obvious if we just read between the lines.
You know, I watched a documentary. It's called My Darling Vivian. My Darling Vivian. So this is Johnny Cash's first wife.
Oh, okay.
They had 4 kids together, 4 daughters. Roseanne Cash. And this documentary made me cry. It came out in 2020 and made me cry a couple times. It's such a good documentary. and I didn't know a whole lot about Johnny Cash. I've been reading some of his stuff. Like there's a book that Robert Wilburn did called The Life, and then his autobiography, Cash. And I was even watching the parts of the show that he used to do, the Johnny Cash TV show.
Oh yeah, I read that he did that.
Yeah, and it sets up a different thing about what people know about Johnny Cash. And I highly recommend it if you're interested in Johnny Cash. And it's not more than that too. Just the daughters are very open, and they wanted to find someone who could make a documentary about their mom to give her a voice that she never had. Because I think they talk a little bit about Walk the Line, the movie, and in that movie she's portrayed in a way that she really wasn't. And there's just a lot of different thoughts, but is superb to me, sort of superb testament to their mom in a lot of ways. It's in just their life, and it's beautiful. So much beautiful stuff in that from Johnny Cash and from their mom Vivian and from the daughters, and who they were when they were born to now. 3 years ago when that came out. That I think you might like it, Liz. It is very. Very touching and beautiful. Like the film itself, that they have all this. Someone filmed all the time. The Cash family before he separated, and married.
Okay.
June Carter Cash or June Carter. I mean, yeah, and it was great. It was really, really just moving.
It's My Darling Vivian.
Yes, My Darling.
And is it Vivian. Like the daughters are saying My Darling Vivian to their mom, or was there someone else?
I think Johnny Cash said that. He said they wrote thousands of letters to each other when he went off to war.
That's right.
And he even did. He even did recorded himself talking to her. When he was overseas and that kind of stuff. Just it was very good.
Yeah, I've seen that movie, Walk the Line, and I remember that it did not portray his first wife super awesome. I mean, I don't remember it being super negative either, but I think they just had to turn this movie into a love story. And so in order for it to be a successful love story, there couldn't be some first wife that you are really, rooting for, or they had to simplify the reality there. So, I mean, that's what I'm guessing. Is it?
Yeah, no, I think it's a truncation. They go into kind of a deeper sense of that, especially with Vivian, because Vivian was alive when that was about to come out.
Oh my gosh, that must have been.
Oh yeah, you watch the documentary and you're just it's good. You need more of those sort of portraits of reality. Because when I remember seeing Walk the Line on the airplane, like somebody told me, what was it? Those are air movies. Is that what it was like? Movies you see in the airplanes, or someone said something to me today.
Ouch, Paul.
No, I mean, someone said that today to me, and I didn't know what they were talking about. And they're like, what that one movie you see only on a plane. I've edited a film that you would see on a plane, so because I was like, hey, that's the one I edited. So I was proud. I was proud when it got on Redbox. But I remember seeing it on air, and I mean, it's just you're looking at a small postage stamp.
Yeah,
as Jack Nicholson would call a small theater. It's even smaller than the small theaters. It's just this little screen, so it's not as cool as it is when you go in the theater. And I remember watching Walk the Line on an airplane. I don't know where I was going, but I was with St. John, I think. But anyway, it was. Who
are you with?
No. I'm trying to think of my dates and stuff, but I wasn't. It wasn't bad, but I couldn't even. I think I saw the whole thing. And it was, I wished I hadn't seen it on a small screen.
Okay.
Because I know I was missing a lot of it. And I remember there was other stuff going on, when I was trying to watch it, so.
Babies crying, and drinks spilling, turbulence.
Stuff like that, yeah. It's always something like that. And I don't think I've ever seen the movie on a plane and really enjoyed it that I could think of, I could remember. And there's always cool stuff, I remember staring at last time we were on an airplane going to New York City, and Laris watched there's the Candyman, like the new Candyman,
Ooh,
and
scary.
the new M. Night Shyamalan one where it's like looks like a skeleton hand in the sand. They go to the beach. It's about becoming young again or something. But they look good. I wanted to watch it, but I knew I wouldn't enjoy it watching it on a small screen and an airplane.
Yeah.
Like on the phone. I don't think I'll ever watch a film on a phone. I mean, maybe down the road when I'm stuck somewhere and I can't, I have to watch something, whatever reason. But
now you're coming across as really spoiled.
Snob.
Okay, total snob here.
I think it's fine if you can watch it like that. But I'm just like, better get some water here.
Get some water, Paul. That's how we don't have a TV. We don't have a projector. So I watch everything on my laptop or on my phone. So that's how
if I can watch it big, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Because my favorite, it's one of my favorite things to do is just watch some old Ida Lupino film. And she was great to watch. I watched a bunch of her stuff.
That's your perfect Friday night right there. Ida Lupino.
Yeah, on Dangerous Ground.
Popcorn.
Exactly. I watched a festival. They put Johnny Cash in this. It's a documentary. It's great documentary. It's just people. It's just before Woodstock. Folk music at Newport, a film by Murray Lerner. Cash is only in it really briefly, but all the music is beautiful. Like a lot of people that I hadn't heard of, some spiritualists and gospel singers, and it's in some interviews with people who were at the festival and what they think of the times. And the Murray Lerner shot it over a period between 1963 and 1966.
Wow!
And he kept in some really wonderful stuff. It's very entertaining, and the music was so great to hear and watch performers.
Okay, I'm writing down those two movies, and we will add them to our show notes so people can check them out. My Darling Vivian and Festival. Very cool. All right, well, we went off on an interesting tangent there, but we should probably come back to this episode of Columbo. We need a lesson on parachuting. Once again, we are yanked into a new location with new person. Pangborn is back, but we're also meeting some kind of parachuting person, Air Force, whatever. I don't know the title. And we learned with the colonel that you need 60 yards to make 60 yards of fabric to make a parachute normally. And then in this scene at some kind of Air Force, training facility, or I don't know what, we learn that a parachute would fit in the navigation kit. They show the cadet or officer, whoever he is, shows us that you could fit it in there, but he points out that there's no harness. And Columbo asks, well, what if he just used some kind of homemade harness? And they agree that could work. And they explain that less fabric could still work. It would just mean, he might hurt himself on the landing.
Ding, ding, ding,
ding, ding, ding, ding, a broken foot or something. Pangborn. So Columbo is pretty convinced at this point that this is what happened, that Tommy Brown made a parachute with 45 yards of fabric and a homemade harness, put it in the navigation kit. Pangborn still isn't totally buying it, but he's kind of, he sees where Columbo's coming from, and he's kind of open to this idea. So now we head back to Tommy's. And now Columbo has a couple more questions for Tommy. He asks Tommy about the change of vocals in the I Saw the Light song. So there's a new musical arrangement, and you can hear it very clearly. Columbo plays both versions of this song, and the original version with Marianne sounds very different than the new version with Tina, the woman he was harassing at his piano. Tina has a really high voice, and you can hear it. So Columbo wants to know since it takes a week to create a new arrangement, how did Tommy know so early in advance that he was going to need a new singer? And Tommy claims that he had been wanting to do this change since before Marianne passed away. This is very similar to Candidate for Crime, where the murderer, Nelson Hayward, ordered a new jacket 10 days before his jacket got soiled with the murder of his campaign manager. And he also says, oh, if you look closely, I mean, he's like, I was playing this for other reasons. It had nothing to do with the murder.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you asked me that, Columbo.
And then Columbo also brings up the thermos again, says we really need to find that thermos. We think that maybe somebody was trying to drug you because you're a celebrity. People just could be crazy.
Oh, I like him doing that. That was great.
Yeah. So Tommy still doesn't quite, I mean, maybe he suspects, but this is a different approach from other times when Columbo very clearly states, I'm on to you.
Yeah.
I know you did it. I just need to, figure out how you did it. And this, he's still leading Tommy along.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm finished.
Yeah.
Claps his hands and but I think it goes along with what we, to the very end of the film, mm-hmm. His feelings on the whole situation. Columbo's, what he thinks of this guy, but he's still trying to solve the murder. So because he's been pretty polite and gracious to Columbo, and Columbo's sense of him sort of corresponds with who he is as a person, it's easier for him to not get aggressive, mm-hmm. Or let him know I'm on to you,
Right. Yeah. Because, like you said, Tommy is not being rude like some of the other villains. Can be hard to handle. So Columbo claims, Columbo states that we're going to put a police guard on you until we find that thermos and we get those fingerprints and we, find the person who tried to kill you. And then Tommy Brown says, oh, well, that'd be great, except that I'm going on a tour, leaving tonight to San Francisco. And so now we head to LAX. I feel like I'm getting yanked all over Los Angeles in this episode. So we're going from Tommy's home to the airport, a different airport. He's not flying private now. He's flying, on a commercial airliner. Columbo follows him there. And Columbo is convinced that Tommy is not actually going to leave because he's got I left out the piece that Columbo tells Tommy, I've got all these people coming out to the canyon to find that thermos. We're going to turn over every twig, every leaf, every acorn. We're going to look under everything. So Columbo has planted that idea in Tommy's head, and he's convinced that Tommy needs to stay behind to get the parachute out of hiding and destroy the evidence. So Columbo follows him to the airport and is shocked when he actually, gets on a plane. But then he notices something at the airport, but it's not until he's in the parking lot with another police officer that it clicks for him that Tommy Brown was flying with his rental car keys. And so Tommy realizes that he wasn't actually planning to stay in San Francisco. He was planning to come back. And so Columbo goes back to the canyon in the middle of the night, and he waits there. He gets dropped off in the canyon, and he waits there for Tommy to show up, and he waits for Tommy to find the parachute and come back to his own car. And that's when Columbo turns the lights on him, and busted. That's it. Caught red-handed with a parachute. And they have one of those moments. It's a little bit like any old port in a storm at the end.
Yeah.
The two of them are talking, and Columbo still seems to have some respect for this guy. Maybe Columbo didn't quite get what the dirt was. I don't know. I mean, the guy is a creep, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe Columbo sees that he's got lots of sides, and one of his sides is good.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I didn't think about the creep part. Yeah, I don't know how he would. Well, maybe if he noticed more at the piano when she was at the piano with him.
Yeah,
and saw the sort of him hitting on her
and getting rid of Marianne and replacing her with another young woman. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of a mixed bit of a mixed bag with that for sure. But it's probably the sort of a mutual respect for each other, maybe in terms of if Peter Falk sort of guides the story, and makes changes to the script too as they film. So he could have led some of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this episode it's kind of heavy when you think about it. They're all involved murder, which is dark and heavy. But I just think the nature of the murder in this case is a little bit more dark.
Yeah, 2 people, and he should have already been in jail for statutory rape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's cool, he pulls a similar strategy that he used with Bart Keppel, where he can't find the evidence. He needs the villain to lead him to the evidence. And in that episode, Paul, which is called Paul.
It's the contact lens a hand.
No, that's Death Lends a Hand. It's different.
I know. Wait, no. Bart Keppel, wasn't that? No, that was the double exposure one.
Double Exposure.
Yeah.
Double Exposure is Bart Keppel.
I knew it was Robert Culp.
Dr. Keppel.
Dr. Keppel, yeah.
Dr. Keppel.
Well, saying the idea that we need to get our contact lenses is similar as well. You'd be planting the idea in the person's head, just like the book publisher one, Publisher Parrish, where he said, what did he say? Was it the key he needed, or
right?
I forget what it was.
If he could find the person with this key on their keychain, he would have his killer. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he makes a key, and but the locks are changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so similar strategy here. Well, Paul, that is the end of Swan Song. That is Tommy Brown's Swan Song right there.
Yeah. So what's your rating, Liz?
My rating, this isn't one of my faves. I've already said a few things I don't really love about it. I don't know. Sometimes I feel a little connection to the villain or the victim. So, sometimes I don't feel a connection to either of them. In this case, I didn't feel a connection to either of them. They both were kind of, unbearable. And the bouncing around from location to location, I did not love. But I did appreciate, I thought Johnny Cash did a really good job. I loved the scene with Vito Scotti at the funeral home, excuse me. I think those were my highlights. I'm going to give this one like 6.5 stars, maybe 7.
Okay.
At most.
Yeah, I would give it I was thinking C-. Mm-hmm. I remember it was like, I always felt like this was one of the best ones because it's Johnny Cash and it's Columbo. Mm-hmm. And I remembered it, and that, it's like I've always liked Columbo. But then when I watched it, I broke it up into 3 viewings. Like I couldn't watch it all the way through because I had to do other stuff or it was late. I can't remember why I stopped watching it the first time, like recently. It's like I just watched the beginning and I think it was late and I was like, oh, I got to go to bed.
Yeah.
But it came off that way and I was like, well, was it because I broke it up, that way, watching it? That's not the best way to watch stuff. But it does have that. It's funny because it sort of reminds me of Johnny Cash and the public persona, especially after watching that My Darling Vivian. It's real. This gives you a real sort of different view of things, and I wondered if that sort of relates to the sort of the story itself in a way. Like he's not quite a bad guy. I mean, in the documentary, it's just about humans, people trying to do the best they can, and people making choices. But you could say there's a certain element in the documentary where Johnny Cash is, not the best dad. There's a lot of things that I don't, I can't speak for him at all, but the girls, his daughters definitely speak their mind.
I bet.
And so, but they all, they love their dad, and there's all kinds of interesting, touching things. But it just reminds me of that in a way. But I did like him saying that, you can't all be bad, something like that.
Right.
It's very, that's how people are, it's like we all have problems. We all have shortcomings and things that we know we wish we could have redone, or
well, not me, but yeah, most people. Just kidding.
No,
just kidding.
Know. But you know what I'm saying, so it's sort of like,
yeah, no, that's a good connection to his real life. Like in his real life, he had his shortcomings, but his kids still loved him, and
he's made the choices, and you can't, until you're in somebody's shoes, you can't really say,
I guess for me, the part that where I'm like, maybe this guy's all bad. He's probably not all bad, but we know he's already hurt someone, a young woman, and then we watch him kind of starting over again with another young woman. and granted, she's probably not a minor, but it's like he didn't learn his lesson. He made a big mistake, and he didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
but on the other hand, like there are probably other good things that.
Well, it's like the music, him. He did sing for Billy Graham, and ABC. He would sing some spiritual songs, gospel songs, and so there was a producer from ABC or one of the networks who told him, "You're doing too much God. You're saying stuff about God, and you can't be doing that." And Johnny Cash, it's in his autobiography, and he says, "This is who I am. I believe in God. This is what I'm singing about. This, I'm not going to change that." And after he put his foot down, they realized he's not trying to convert anybody. Was his point to the executives, like, this is what I believe, but I don't want to hide that.
Right.
Why would I want to hide that? It's beautiful music too. Like there's a lot of things going on when I sing the song, which is, kind of what him and the Ida Lupino were singing in the beginning. That's what they're singing for, praising God. And,
right.
But yeah, it's interesting because he did do that. Like Billy Graham flew out to meet him, and he didn't know what Billy Graham wanted. Billy Graham was a preacher, big television preacher. But Billy Graham didn't ask for anything. But then Johnny Cash said, "Hey, if you ever want me to sing for you, and let me know." And sure enough, he ended up singing a lot for Billy Graham over the years.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, this one was interesting. I definitely want to see it again.
Okay.
And just see how it might play as a whole. I like the scene, like when the scenes that they're in the house together, he and Johnny Cash. I like both of those scenes. Like when he's strumming the guitar and he's kind of listening to Columbo. It seemed real. It seemed very because he's also like kind of musing, like, what's he talking about? But he's also just chilling out because he's a great, musician. He's a great artist. So and then that was excellent. And then when he was calling him, "Hey, little buddy," like, has anybody ever called Columbo that? It was like a genuine, affection for him as a detective.
I wonder.
So I really like that.
I love that moment where he was strumming the guitar. We needed more of that. More of that in this episode, please.
Yeah, Carl Perkins was supposed to be in it when they were by the pool or outside after the funeral the day of. Like he was supposed to be playing
bikini party.
Yeah, but ironically, Perkins had to go away because he's like Johnny Cash. He's a very famous singer from. He was on Sun Records, I believe, like Elvis Presley was. If you just type in Carl Perkins, you'll just see like, oh wow, yeah, this guy's huge. You probably heard some of his music.
Like, you're basically saying like, just Google it, Liz.
It's saying like, I don't want to get it wrong. I'm not 100% sure, but I know I've listened to his music before.
Okay.
So
that would have been cool having him in there.
I think the other people were like part of the really good musicians that were sitting out there with him on the lawn.
Yeah. I believe it. Yeah, it would have been cool to have a little more music in this one and different music. Not the
I don't remember Dick Benedictus' music too much. I guess again it goes back to like me breaking it up into 3 different viewings.
Whose music?
Dick Benedictus. He did the score for this one.
Oh. Yeah, there was just a little bit here and there, like a little flourish for drama or whatever.
Sometimes that's good. That's like if you can't remember, if it's not sticking out, then it's doing its job in terms of pulling you into the. I mean, sometimes, into the story, into the world.
Yes. Okay, we did our rating. Now it's time for trivia, Paul, if you have any.
Yes. So
hold on to your pants, everyone.
So Johnny Cash got really pissed with Peter Falk when they were filming this.
I'm going to say false.
False? Why would you say that?
Because I read Koenig's book.
What did Koenig say?
Koenig said Johnny Cash had such a good time that he started working on a pilot with his agent to do this kind of thing again. And because Johnny Cash went out of his way and filmed his own audience in Binghamton, New York, out of his own pocket to help out the show.
But don't you think he could still get mad at one point?
Okay, so you're giving me hints here. Maybe the answer is true.
Yeah, he did get mad at him,
yes.
but he did say Peter Falk was good to me. I wasn't at all confident about handling a dramatic role. And every day he helped me in all kinds of little ways. I only got mad at him once. He was telling me how to deliver a line, and he said, I do it just like this, or however you people say it down there. I just gave him a look and said, well, we people would probably say it just about how you people say it up there, to let him know I wasn't still fresh off the farm. I'd been to town.
Oh.
So.
Where are you reading that, Paul?
Oh, yeah, so this is in the Johnny Cash.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Paul's showing me the book Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash. Okay, so let's see.
Can I just say that there are some kids in town who are named Cash.
Oh, and you're in Santa Cruz?
Yeah.
Are they related? They might be, huh?
No, their first name is Cash.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've had kids at the kids' school that were Cash. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm not into that name. I apologize.
Liz, you just lost.
We just lost all of our listeners who named their sons Cash.
Okay, so my wife, St. John, as we know,
yes, that's true.
Interviewed Ida Lupino.
What? I feel like can you give me more context?
Yeah,
is that all I get?
She went to her home and they talked about picture that was coming out that she was doing.
Oh, Paul. I gotta say false. I should say true. Paul's raising his eyebrows. No, now he's shaking his head. False. It's false.
St. John. There was a St. John who interviewed Ida Lupino. And in the book that William Donati did, St. John, the writer was Adela Rogers St. John, and they spent some time with Ida Lupino, and it's throughout this section in the book, and it's pretty interesting. But
and that's in her autobiography that
it's a biography by William Donati.
Oh, sorry, hold it up for me again. Paul's holding up the cover.
Yeah, so she was one of the few female, there was very few female film directors. She did a Twilight Zone episode, the one with the masks. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I watched it last night, and I thought that the characters and the line deliveries wasn't very good. Like, it was not. Oh. Yeah, so I was thinking that she didn't. Like, I should watch more of her work. I think it's awesome that she was doing stuff. I mean, it's a good episode, and there are some moments that are better than others. But there were some of the, because in the Twilight Zone series, you have so many good actors throughout those. It's set during Mardi Gras. She was in a Twilight Zone that she was really good in. She plays like this. She played a famous actress who was like not getting the parts anymore that she wanted to. That's all I'll say. But that one was really good.
I can't watch those anymore. They're too creepy.
The Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
You tried to watch them, and then at one point, then you're like, not anymore.
I just assume.
Like, what's creepy about it?
I mean, I'm just remembering, like, the last time I watched the Twilight Zone, it was really creepy.
What happened in it?
This is the one where there was like, I feel like I've talked about this before. There was like a big old house, and an elderly gentleman lived there with his daughter. Turns out his daughter lived in the attic, and his daughter was like this weird bat creature humanoid thing.
I don't think we talked about that one. We've talked about Twilight Zone before.
And my memory of it is so fuzzy because it was so long ago, but I know it's too scary to watch. It's too, because the Twilight, so here's the thing, like, I love action movies where there's a clear hero and clear outcome on the way. Yeah. And I like some science fiction, like I love the Alien series.
Yeah.
Because it's so far removed from my reality. But Twilight Zone is like a, blurs the line with my life and spooky,
Yeah.
It's just too close to home. I don't know. Maybe I should give it another try. But
yeah, you should. You should just like see how you feel about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of good. I like that writing that sort of blends what's going on, and it is kind of scary though. Some of it, like I think Philip K. Dick is similar to that, where there's a certain reality that what's he tapping into? Yeah, I like that kind of writing. Sort of, takes you into something that you could. Yeah, I read a lot of that stuff though. I like that stuff a lot.
Reading can be a little bit easier, like less scary, I guess.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I have.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I haven't. Yeah, I see what you're saying though. Some of it is like there was an actress in one of the Columbos. I can't remember who it was, but she was in a Twilight Zone where she's at a bus stop. She's at the bus stop, and she goes to the bathroom, and she comes out, and she's still sitting. She sees another version of herself sitting in the place she just was. And it turns into this, it's great. It's like, but it goes in that scary, weird territory that are kind of like your nightmares that you might have. And I definitely don't like my nightmares, but that has the kind of quality you're talking about, I think. That bridges on a certain reality. So,
yeah.
So do you feel like this episode brought you into that? The Swan Song?
No. There wasn't. I mean, we have our lead villain who's creepy, but not Twilight Zone creepy.
Yeah.
More like, just this is the kind of person who probably gives off those vibes, and you just, in real life, you kind of know, like, I probably want to stay away from this guy.
Yeah.
His look lingers a little too long kind of guy.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know. I have a lot of spidey senses, so I think I could probably steer clear of someone like that. But
yeah, go with your gut feeling.
Go with the gut. Do you have another trivia question?
No, that's all, Liz.
Okay.
Yeah, we.
That's 100% success for me tonight.
Yeah, you did great. I'm a little I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more reading on everything, but just time kind of slipped away.
It's okay. You had some great nuggets to share. It's all good.
Can't wait for this next one you mentioned. This I don't remember this one, so I'm excited to watch it.
I love this next one a lot. A Friend Indeed, coming out next. Well, we should sign off here, Pablo.
Yeah.
Thank you to Maxime Gervais for our theme song, Columbo.
Yay, thank you, Maxine.
Thank you. And this podcast is edited by John Guarenas. Thank you, John.
Thanks for putting up with all this jibber jabber.
That's right. And if you'd like to add to our conversation, you can email us at trenchcoatcigar@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram. We are at trenchcoatcigar. And you can get video recordings of our podcast and monthly updates and behind the scenes on our Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/trenchcoatcigar to check that out. And we also want to give a shout out to our lovely patrons. We are so grateful for each and every one of you. Jen, Sam, Andrew, Michael, Gina, Cassandra, Dorothy, Susan, and Derek.
Well, who's Dorothy?
I don't know. She might be related to us, though.
Might be our mom. Dorothy
Thanks,
Montez
Mom.
McDade.
And thank you, everybody else. Thank you to our patrons. We really appreciate you.
Yes.
Helping us make this show happen. And if you don't have the financial means to become a patron, if you give our podcasting a rating or a review, that also is a big thank you to us, and it helps more listeners, more Columbo fans find our show. So thank you for that. And Paul, one last thing here.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thanks for listening. Hurrah. Okay.
Trench coat, cigare, là toujours. Colombo, pour mon beau Colombo. Pas de gun, pas de look, what a look. Colombo, trench coat, cigare, là toujours. Colombo, pour mon beau Colombo. Pas de gun, pas de look, what a look. Passion meurtrière, folie passagère. Rien à foutre devant l'expertise policière. T'avais un plan sans faille, pensez à chaque détail.